Hi, this is Module 16, Missing Booster Club Funds by Heather O'Neill. My case study summary is that, this is George Washington Middle School. Mr. Stevens or Daniel Stevens is the fourth year principal at this school. There's a decreased population going on right now as families are moving out. The families that are left do not necessarily have the means to move out, so the socioeconomics are definitely decreasing as well. Lucy's mom, Mrs. Bowman, has requested PTA funds for Lucy to attend an all-state cheerleading parade. Mr. Stevens has denied that request, stating that PTA money, is for all students or the majority of students. So far at a basketball game, the last basketball game of the season, parent volunteers are running the concession stand and collecting proceeds at the gate. Mrs. Bowman is in charge of the money. Mr. Dumas said he paid with a $50 bill. There are 10 torn tickets, numbers 78 to 88, and the cost of 10 tickets worth, $50 worth, are found missing when Mr. Stevens is doing his nightly counting and deposit for activity funds. The problem identification and analysis that I see. So what do I need to know? Well, what do I know? So far, I know that Mr. Stevens is a fourth-year principal and he has no assistant. There are 450 students with a declining population, and a low socioeconomics. Young couples are moving away. They're moving to the suburbs. There's still really good community involvement and parent volunteers. Parents volunteer for fundraising activities. They volunteer during the day, so they still have really good community support. The other thing is they seem to be pretty athletic. They have basketball, volleyball, and track. So far, what we know about the parents like the principal. They seem to engage with him at activities. They volunteer at games, and throughout the day to work with students, such as during the reading buddies, and many work at the local textile mill. What we know about the current situation is that the parent, Mrs. Bowman, requested PTA funds for her student only. Mr. Stevens has denied that request. Sharing with her that PTA money is for all students or the majority of students. And we know that money went missing at the basketball game. We know that there wasn't any direct staff supervision. It was all parent volunteers. We know that, or what do we need to know? Who else was working with Mrs. Bowman? Were the regular procedures followed? It says that 2 people always work at the gate and 2 people work at the concession stand, but was that the case in this situation? Did someone step out to volunteer someplace else? Did they, leave to use the restroom? What was the case? We know that, I do know that $50 was missing and the 10 tickets were torn. But where are they? Were they just thrown in the trash? What's the procedure for setting those aside and keeping track of those? Has money been missing before? Was it the same parents, if money has been missing before, that were working in this, at this game? And then, did Mr. Stevens count the money 2 times just to double check to ensure that he had an accurate count? Did someone else count the money with him, such as the security guard? And then was the $50 given as change? Was there a larger bill in the, the money bag? So it wouldn't be, necessarily a theft issue if just that $50 bill wasn't in there, if there was a larger bill in return. Did anyone else have access to the money bag? And are there security cameras, that perhaps would have footage of, the game and where the money was being collected at the gate? Proposed plan of action and strategies for implementation. Definitely start asking questions ASAP. Who else took tickets at the gate that night? Check to see if the ticket stubs were given to Mr. Dumas. If they were, what ticket number did he have? Talk with the volunteers that were there that day, that evening, to get information, and I would definitely do this with another staff member or administrator present that would be a neutral party. Ask questions that are going to be fact-finding questions, not accusing. You can alternate your questions and ask, very similar questions in different ways to see if you get the same answer. Some of the questions I would be asking were the regular procedures followed. Did we stick with that 2-man policy at all times? Where were the torn tickets placed? What is the policy for that? Was it followed? How many torn tickets were sold, if any? We know that there were 10 torn tickets. Were they sold or were they set aside? And ask questions, like I stated, in a variety of ways. Continuing on, reviewing the procedures and training with the PTA parent volunteers on ticket taking and concession sales. Make sure that we're always following the same policies and procedures, no matter who's at the gate or at the concession stand. Review with parents the consequences if of missing money or of inventory, things missing from the concession stand. Remind them how important this money is, and that it also could become, a criminal case if money or inventory is missing. Review policies, to ensure that they are up to date and very logical and, doable for each case, particularly for gate ticket taking and concession stand. Ensure that 2-man policy is always in place, that no matter what, it needs to be implemented, and that, the administrator, I need to be aware that that's being enforced and that's always happening. And in, certain cases, big events, you may need additional staff. You may need to talk to, your superintendent, others in the district, to have either another administrator or another paid staff member or two on hand to help with crowd control so that you can oversee, some of the money handling and those types of situations. Resolving the issue, how am I going to promote success for all students? Ensure that policy changes are in place to prevent future mishaps or misunderstandings. We need to ensure that all volunteers are trained. And if they can't attend a personal one-on-one training, there needs to be a quick down and dirty training before they are ever allowed to handle money or take tickets at the gate. And this training can be done with written procedures and policies, with a step-by-step, check sheet or check off that person has been trained, and have a sign-off sheet, or something along that, so that you have the accountability that those parents have been trained. Once you've collected the facts, move forward with the district policy if theft has occurred. Remind parents this organization is for success of all students, therefore this money is very vital. Debriefing the problem and kind of my reflection on it. What was I thinking? It's easy to assume that Mrs. Bowman took the money, but I definitely need to stay level-headed and be professional, right? If there is a theft by Mrs. Bowman, how do I handle it next? What's the district policy? Are criminal actions warranted? For $50, probably not, but that's where I would be talking with other administrators and my superintendent to see how to handle the situation and move forward. I would be feeling a bit frustrated in the situation. You think that you have parents coming in to do what's best for students, and if theft occurred, then that's definitely not the case, So how do I handle it, again, correctly and professionally? I'm definitely liked in the community, it sounds like, if I'm Mr. Stevens, and I don't want to ruin that relationship by assuming something or accusing someone wrongly and, handling the situation unprofessionally. And then definitely valuing. How do I value the situation? Even though there was this mishap that happened, this is a community that supports the school in a lot of ways. They volunteer during the day. They volunteer after school. And their help is definitely valued and appreciated, because a lot of the things that occur, those fundraising activities could not happen without parent volunteers. So how as a leader do I promote academic success, personal well-being of every student, and effective management of the school? So for component 1, effective and efficient management of the school, ensure effective policies and procedures are in place. These need to be reviewed regularly, as times change and as, parents change. Are the policies and procedures in place doable? Are they, simple enough that anybody can step in and follow? Ensure that effective training is done with that written procedure so that there's no question about what needs to happen, that anyone volunteering can follow the written procedures and the checkoffs during an event. School funds are definitely my responsibility no matter what. So whether I'm busy at a staff event, I still need to ensure that money is being handled appropriately. And so if that means that I need to find, additional staff to help me, other administrators, whatnot, then I need to find a better solution to allow myself that time to oversee the money situations. And then, continue with volunteers to keep a strong community. Just because one mishap has occurred doesn't mean that you shut off all those ties with the community. Keep promoting, that community involvement to build your school up. How do I promote social learning of every student? Definitely keep encouraging all volunteers. Encourage those parents to bring their students to help. Encourage, ensure that funds are spent to benefit all students so parents can see that their volunteering hours, at fundraising events are going to good use. Encourage students to volunteer at events and in the community. It may not be a fundraising event such as, taking money at the gate or the concession stand, but how can they get involved to better the school, to better the community? Continue to teach the skills that we teach every day in school. We call them Bear Pride at my school, but basically, you're teaching respect, responsibility, honesty, integrity, and so forth. Basically teaching them to be good people no matter what in any situation. So, continue to celebrate all student successes. Even if an individual student has a success, share it with all students and encourage, all students to continue to be more and more successful. So how do I, as a school leader, promote academic learning? Definitely, again, continue with those parent volunteers. Those parent volunteers are role models for the students in the school. By them participating in the fundraising activities, we're able to spend those funds in areas to improve academic learning, additional field trips or, things that are needed in the school, maybe a smart board or, playground equipment, drinking fountains for the better health of our students. They get to burn energy. They get to stay hydrated. Then, they're definitely more focused in the classroom. Keep showing value in the parent volunteers, and keep with that positive relationship. That's only going to make your school stronger and stronger. The more that parents are involved, the more that the kids want to be involved, and it's just a snowball from there. Continue providing training and ensure school funds are organized, they're documented. We know where money's being spent. We know where money's being collected. Remind volunteers why school funds are so important and let them see the impact. Have a display board of the things that PTO money goes for. Again, as I mentioned earlier, new playground equipment. My school just recently put in rubber mulching for the school, and we had, data to show that we've had a lot less injuries. So just some things like that people know that their hard work is being put to good use, that it's not just going to one or two students, that it is going to the bulk of students. By being able to raise those funds, maybe students can go on more field trips, which enhances their learning in the classroom. Perhaps they get to go to something like a Starbase where they're learning about, math and science, CAD programs, rockets, robots, things like that. Giving them some additional exposure can definitely enhance their academic learning in the classroom. So thank you.